Hi, this is Katrina. Welcome to my studio and to my channel. This is the part two of painting portrait of Princess Leia. I've been having dreadful trouble with recording voiceovers, so this has been in my projects box to edit for so long, and hoping we'll finally get somewhere today. So I painted this the day after the previous portrait that I did of her. Um, and most of the colours were the same. The difference on this painting is that the paper I'm using is Arches 300 GSM cold press, 100% cotton. Now, the other difference is I'm working on a slope rather than flat, and when you work on a slope the pigments do move more, obviously because of gravity. And the other difference is that I decided using dioxazine violet to create my greys and shadows as opposed to ultramarine blue. So dioxazine violet is a non-granulating color, and it creates a different effect, and obviously without the granulation it changes how the overall painting looks. But on the whole, it really shows how much of a difference paper can make to the final look of a work. So if you're struggling with blotchiness and backgrounds and unevenness in your painting, there's a good chance that it's actually the paper and not your skills that are letting you down. So if possible, try and get your hands on some different papers and just try different things. So depending on what effects you're going for and what look is in your final, what the final look you want on your piece, it may be that you just need to change the paper that you're working on. So on the whole, this was a really different process painting this portrait. It was easier because I didn't need to worry about the blotchiness and the uneven granulations. I will admit, having just painted the portrait, I was much more familiar with the mechanics and what I was going to do and when. But it's still a process, you know. This is a process where I am glazing layer upon layer and having to wait between layers to dry or move from one area of the portrait to the other. Obviously moving between one area and the next is easier as you're sort of starting to work in smaller areas, but when you're laying down the first shadows and things like that, it obviously, you've got to wait for the whole thing to dry before you can move on or hit it with a hairdryer. The other thing that you will see in this is just how much of a drying shift can happen. The paints I'm using are my Roman Small Aquarius paints, and the brushes are generally my silver black velvets, but I do also use Pro Art connoisseur brushes, particularly for some of the finer details. So they're the ones with the red tips on the ends. But overall, I was quite happy with the overall painting process on this one, and sit back, enjoy the rest of the process, and I'll talk to you at the end. I hope you've enjoyed this little paint through. Um, I'm just going to add the following, just the final touches and a little tiny bit of white gouache at the end just to bring out the specular highlights in the eyes and just, highlight a few little points. It's amazing how much just a tiny, tiny little bit of white gouache can make to the overall look of a painting. I hope you enjoyed seeing this process. It was really informative for me as an artist still learning my portrait painting processes to see how much of a difference paper can make to the overall result, and that I have to take that into account when I'm planning my works. And I'll pop them up side by side so you can see the direct comparison of the two works. So, quite amazing how much of a difference paper makes. So, thanks very much, and like, subscribe, share, and we'll see